Hello everybody, this is Jasmina, and in this video I'm going to talk about personalized special dates, and this is personalized based on your qua number. Most people can get by with a circle of light qua number calculator, and you can just Google that, and you will need your date of birth and your preferred gender, and I think it should be preferred because the universe is telling you something. If you don't have a preferred gender, I would say let the universe decide. Write out something that says, like tossing a coin. If it's heads, it's this gender. If it's tails, it's the other gender. I don't care which way you do it. But this gets you locked in. And then you toss the coin. And then you follow that. Because the universe is telling you if you don't have a preferred gender. If you do, then it's not a problem. But if you were born between February 3rd and February 5th, you should either contact me or use the free Joey app, Batsa app. And this is a pretty interesting app anyway, but you do have to register and give them your email and you'll get a ton of email. For the Circle of Light qua number calculator, they don't ask you for anything. You can just use it. And if you were born February 3rd through the 5th, you will also need your time of birth, because this is when we shift from one year to another in the Chinese solar calendar. And so that will depend very up down to the minute which qua number you have, if you happen to be born on the day where we transition. Now, there will be times when you come out of, what'll come out of these calculators will be the number 5. I think this is called a life star here, but it's the biggest number on the whole chart. But if it's 5, you use, and you consider yourself male, you use 2 instead. If you consider yourself female, you use 8. Again, use your preferred gender, and if you don't have a gender, let the universe decide. The whole reason why I'm going to go through all this is so that I can give you some dates that are good dates for starting a big project. Now, you can do this in other ways. You can wait until you have a good year where the annual chart combines with your natal flying star chart, and you get a really good thing. But that can come once every 9 years, and so that's a lot less. This happens several months every year, and that's why this is a good thing to use. What you need to do is, once you find your qua number, you need to note down these 3 locations or sectors. And this is the most important one, and you should put a check mark or underline it so that you know this is the sector that's the key sector. And I'm going to briefly explain how this is created so that you can check my chart if you like. You can also take a screenshot if you want to be able to have this on hand. So we have 2 different types of baguas. We have an early heavens bagua and we have a later heavens bagua. Now, the early heavens bagua, when we are looking at various things, when you have a link there, it's good for health and relationships. And the later heavens bagua is good for financial stuff. Now, I'm just going to take one example of someone who has a qua 9. That's not me, just so you know I'm not doing it for me. And what you notice here, I said this is the most important one. This is your personal gua. This is the location on the Lo Shu chart of your star or your qua number. And that's in the south. And it's in the south of both of these charts. So the way we get the linkage to these locations is through the identification of the qua, or the trigram, actually. That might make it a little more clear. So if we have the south here, it's called Qian. In the early heavens, well, if we look for it over here, you see it's down here in the northwest. And if you actually look, every one of these is different in this chart compared to this chart. Nothing stays the same. So this links the south, which is you, or this person's qua, with the northwest in the later heavens. We do the same thing. Here we look at the south, which is Li, which is fire, which is in the east over here. And that's how we get this location here. And you can do that for everyone. This is a lot easier to do than the way I was instructed to do this. It's actually very simple, but they made it as complicated as possible. So what this means is that you, or this person, being in this south sector, it has a link to the east and the northwest. And this is some sort of natural link in that happens because of the early in heavens bagua. So usually what you will see is you will have the 9 sectors of your house, and you just have to note which sectors correspond to these. And this is usually the way you'll see it. There'll be squares rather than a pie-shaped thing. Now, in order to use this personalized special dates, you either have to activate 2 or 3 sectors of your residence at the same time. One sector you activate by being in there, doing the activity for that special, the special thing that, the special project you have. But the other one has to be activated too. And which sectors you need to activate and how many sectors depends on the annual and month stars in those sectors. Now, you do have to focus on your gua sector. Your gua has to be part of this. So if you have 2 sectors you're activating, one is your gua and the other is either early or later heavens location. But there are times when all 3, the gua, the early heavens, and the later heavens, are all involved. Now, when it comes to defining the year and month stars, it's actually pretty easy. The number listed everywhere here is actually the center number in your 9-grid box. And you will fly that number in the forward direction of the Lo Shu pattern. And I'll show you what I mean. But it's really quite simple. Every year, when the new year comes, and this is the first year, February 4th starts the first month of any year in the Chinese solar calendar. So this is the first month for 2022. It has a star 5 for the year, a star 2 for the month, and every month it goes down by 1. So the next month it's 1 and then 9, and it'll go all the way to, this is right before 2023 in the Chinese solar calendar starts, and it happens to be a 9 again, and it just keeps going down. So the first month of the Chinese solar year in 2023 has an 8, and this also goes down by 1. So once you know one of these, you can calculate any month, any time. You just have to have a method to go through all these months. It's actually pretty easy compared to most of Feng Shui. Now what you'll see is something that looks a bit like this. I mean, it depends on how you want to write it out, but this is the year star, this is the month star, and again it's in the center. This is the Lo Shu pattern, and you can find more details about doing the Lo Shu on various websites, but this is how it goes. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, back to 5. The 2 does the same pattern. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 1, back to 2. And once you do this enough times, it's part of your muscle memory, and it just becomes automatic. It's effortless once you get this into your, basically into your hand, and you'll do it automatically. Now, remember for qual number 9, these were the 3 sectors. So this is the 3 sectors we look at. If you have qual number 9, this will be the sectors you're looking at. If you have a different qual, you're going to have different sectors. Now, what we are looking for in those highlighted sectors are either a parent string, a herd2, or a combo 10. The parent string is the strongest, the combo 10 is the weakest. And you want to have it between your gua and either the early heavens or your gua and the later heavens, or all 3. and it can happen anyway. And I'll show you a couple examples. This is an example of a combo 10. We have a 9 and a 1, which makes 10, and a 5 and a 5, which makes 10. Here we actually have an interesting situation. You have both a HER2 and a combo 10. There's a 10, there's a 10, but the 9, 4, and the 6, 1 are part of the HER2. Now I have a video about the HER2 so you can know which numbers we're talking about. The HER2 is stronger than the combo 10, so you use this as a HER2. Here's an example of a parent string where you've got the 3, 6, 9, and the 1, 4, 7. Those are both parent strings. Now, you can sometimes have it in just one. I mean, like if this were a 2 instead of a 1, you would just have the 3, 6, 9, and not the other one. That's a bit weaker, but that's still pretty good. And it's still probably better than a HER2, although it's close. Now, these aren't the way they'll be arranged on your chart. I'm just collecting the numbers. There will be nothing that is in a straight line in your highlighted areas. But this is just to show you what kind of numbers we're talking about. Now, the HER2 and the combo 10 must occur for both numbers. It can't just occur for one. So if this were a 6, you'd have, this would be a 10, but this would not be a 10. So it doesn't work. So for both the HER2 and the combo 10, both numbers in both boxes must be involved. Now, sometimes you will find that you'll have an early and later heavens that has some sort of a combination, but the gua is not part of it. You cannot use those dates because you are the gua and you're not part of this. That's why gua has to be part of any combination. Now, what type of activation that's needed? Remember, I was talking about this. We have one of the areas will be where you are doing the work for that new big project, and the other has to be activated using elemental activations. So I'll just do a quick example here. Let's say this is the location of your gua, and this happens to be where your later heavens is. In general, if you can sit where your gua is and do the work, as long as the room is able to accommodate it, that's probably slightly better. It doesn't have to be, but it's slightly better. That means you need to activate one of the stars in this later heavens location. And I would activate the 1 because the 1 is a better number. And in this case, you would use metal because 1 is a water star. Metal produces water. It also weakens the 5 earth, and the 5 is a pretty bad star. But this can still be used because it is a combo 10. So the 5s aren't as negative as they would otherwise be. So that is perfectly fine. Now, if we were to switch this and you decided that this is a good room for you to be in and you wanted to activate the early heavens, then what I would put in here would be a live plant, because a live plant represents wood, and wood feeds the fire of 9, and it also weakens the 5. And so again, we are combining things so that we are energizing with elements some sort of good energy and activation. And you just do that for everything. Now, if it's here, you actually have to activate 2 areas. And in this case, this is metal, so putting earth in here, which could include ceramics, that would be fine. Here it needs water. Here it could, actually this one's a little more difficult. I would put myself here if I were doing this because this is easier to activate than this. This combo is a bit hard to activate. It can be done, but you have to pick one or the other to activate because they kind of actually clash with each other. So this would be the sector you'd want to sit in. So it takes a little bit of finesse to be able to do this. But if you understand the combinations and how the elements work, it's not terribly hard. Now, will be doing this for you if you hire me, but I just want to show you how this works. Now, these dates, as I said, are useful to either plan or start a new or big something you really want to get done project. And there'll be, if you link between your Gua and your early heavens, it will be good for health and relationships. So health dates are good for things like starting a new healthy diet, not a fad diet, but a healthy diet. It also can help you with an exercise routine. And if you're having trouble and your doctor's not being able to find the right medication, or maybe they're just not quite sure what's going on. I mean, they know what organ is involved, but they're not quite sure. This is a time to start looking for another doctor that is a specialist, probably, and they will be able to find the right medication and right treatment for you. When it comes to relationships, this is a great date to either start some sort of therapy, and it doesn't matter if it's for couples or individuals. For example, if you're a very shy person and have trouble speaking up in group meetings, then you probably would be very, very well serviced by getting some help to make you less shy. Now, this can also be a good time to perhaps start something like meditation or yoga or something like this, where this helps calm you, or at least most people. Meditation and yoga help calm you, make you better able to handle stress, and that's always good for relationships. But it's also good for health. Now, if you have a combination between your Gua and your later heavens location, it's a wealth date. Now, there are times when it will be both, but oftentimes it's one or the other. And these dates are good for anything involving earning money. It's a fantastic date to start to learn a new skill that will help you either get promoted or get get a raise. It's also good for researching investing or acquiring assets after you've done your research. It's a good date to actually put in, let's say, a bid for a piece of property or a house or something that you want to move into. Or, for example, it could even be something like an NFT, which isn't actually real, but it has value. That's all included. Now, you can use these dates either to plan or implement the projects. And it's actually a good idea to use both because these dates happen fairly frequently. And so it's okay to do the planning first on one of these good months. It's basically a month. And then the next one that rolls around, you actually implement the plan. So this is perfectly fine. And they happen frequently enough that this isn't a bad idea. Now, you only need to start these projects, whether it's planning or implementing, during these periods to increase your chances of success. This is the whole point we're doing this. And of course, most of these are going to take much longer than a month. If it's big, it's going to take longer than a month. And so it's okay. You just have to start it during the period of time, which I'm showing you in just a couple slides. Now, remember, you must activate all the sectors involved, whether it's 2 or 3. One will be where you're doing the work yourself, and the other will be done by elemental activations. If you don't do that, these dates are just like any other date. It doesn't make any difference. If you do not activate, it doesn't give you the energy of this special formation. Now, here are some examples, and this is just the remainder of this year. So these are not, so you can see that we've got 3 just in the last few months of this year. So there's quite a few for every Qua number. And I have a level here, which kind of tells you how strong it is. It's not a perfect system, but a 3 is much stronger than a 1, and a 2 is somewhere in between. So this is just an idea of the level. Now, you still have to be able to properly identify and identify what kind of elemental activation you need, but that isn't terribly hard if you understand the five elements. And so we have dates for health and relationships, dates for wealth. Some of them are for both, so it's pretty useful. Now, this is for the remainder ones that are the 4, the 6, and the 8. Now, the Qua 7 and the Qua 9 actually had a permanently good condition for wealth, health, and relationships. But the activation you may need to do in the other rooms where you're not, and this is all 3 are involved. So you have to do 2 activations. That often changes every month, and there are some that are stronger than others. And the Qua 9 does actually have, Qua 9 and Qua 7 do have actual months that also are quite good. So you have to look at this kind of, you want to pick out the month even in here, although you can use any time. So you're lucky if you're Qua 7 or Qua 9. Now, there's one caveat. You must be free of a certain type of blockage for you to be able to use these dates well. And this is the key. I'm not quite sure what kind of blockage to call it, but if your fear of doing something new outweighs your enthusiasm to do it, then you probably have a blockage, and that's the kind of blockage that can be a problem. So we work on this blockage to reduce this or eliminate this, then you can take advantage of these dates. It'll be much more effective if you do that. You don't have to do it if you don't want, but it will be more work. Now, of course, this is part of a full analysis that I do. I give you the 2 nearest dates for up to 2 breadwinners of the family. And I also include how to properly activate those extra sectors, which I can't really do here because they're just too much to deal with. It would be 5 times as long as it already is. So that's basically it. I'd like to thank you for watching. Please feel free to contact me here if you have any questions, or look at my ad-free website to see more of what I do. And you can also subscribe, because I will have updates. Even this one, I'll have a yearly update for everybody. So it may be worth subscribing because you'll be notified. I'd like to thank you again for watching.